Need
Oh, you do have a gavel, good. I call the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee order at 7 o'clock. Sitting on this committee is Councilor Dolan and Councilor Waterman. I'm happy that the rest of the councils are here because I attended the Municipal Building Commission last December 5th. And I do have two motions to bring before you this evening, but at the Building Commission meeting, I invited Municipal Building Vice Chairman Jack Jacoby to come and address the committee on the new developments that we've uncovered in the library. So, Mr. Jacoby, if you would please come take the podium and run through what we've learned.
Chairman, Council, I am actually the chairman of the Municipal Building Commission. I'm vice chairman of the School Building Committee.
Sorry for being confused.
It's okay.
Please accept my apologies.
Sometimes I get confused. So I'm here to tell you a story, and it's not a great one. We know that the library is in tough shape, that the roof has been leaking, the masonry is in poor shape, and that the HVAC system died last summer. And so we were able to get Mark Zawatsky to serve as a clerk of the works. We had an estimate from him that he thought that the repairs would be somewhere around $1,250,000. That's below the $1,500,000 threshold for having to hire an owner's project manager. And so we went ahead and did designer selection. We chose an architectural firm named BH&A, very competent and well-recognized firm. We entered into a contract with them to pay them $125,000 to go through the feasibility study to determine exactly what was wrong, to figure out what it would cost, and to go then to design the fix and administer bidding and oversee construction. And they recently came back to us with a whole lot of paper. I know that the committee chair and the committee members have all of the paper. I think that the rest of you have at least the cost estimate. And if you want all the rest of the paper, Gail Clark is right there, and she'll arrange to get it for you.
Actually, if I could interrupt you, Jack, I have it digitally, so councilors, if you wish to read it, it's quite lengthy, and I will get the digital edition to the administrator so you can get it from there. It'll save a lot of trees. Sorry, Jack.
So when Gail emailed this report to me, she said, sit down, and I did. And if you look at the numbers on the second page, you will see that we're looking at somewhere around $6.2 million of repair work to the library. And that was a big number, way more than we expected. That means a number of things. One thing it means is that we now have to go back out and hire an owner's project manager. And then we could use that person to negotiate a new contract, because obviously BH&A, if it's a $6.2 million job, is going to be looking for a larger fee than a $1,250,000 job. So the work that has to be done is set forth in a memo, which I think many of you were provided with. But just let me summarize to say that on the masonry, we have spalled and cracked bricks. We have stone elements, especially around the balconies. The mortar joints need to be resealed and repointed. The stone elements that form part of the charm of the old building are dirty and stained. the lintels at the lower level window heads, which is a metal piece, they are rusted, need to be prepared, primed, and painted. And apparently the west elevation is covered with vegetation, which is adversely affecting the building. The roof needs to have completely removed the EPDM roof at the upper main, north and south roofs, everything right down to the base. The slate roof on the original building and associated copper flashings and gutters needs to be removed. There's asbestos-containing roofing flashing materials that have to be dealt with as hazardous waste. And replacing the new roof, or replacing all the roofs that we took off with new flashing and all the things that go along with that. The skylights need to be resealed. And there's miscellaneous repairs. There's windows and doors. All of the existing wood windows in the original building need to be stripped and repainted. Or you could, and I'm not sure whether we could do this historically or would want to, but you can install new storm windows in place of wood windows. There is exterior stairs and railings which are rusting and need to be prepared and repainted. And the downspouts and gutters are not in good shape. What they call Juliet balconies need to be prepared, primed, and painted. The mechanical system needs to be replaced in its entirety. I can tell you that we're kind of lucky we got 25 years out of it because the then mayor decreed that there was a certain price that we could not exceed in building the new library. And so the HVAC system that was used was obsolete the day it was put in. They weren't making it anymore, but it was what we could afford. We got 25 years out of it, so I think we're probably got our money's worth. But it can't be repaired at all. Parts don't even exist. The electrical system also needs upgrading, and apparently we have to meet the energy code, so we have to upgrade fluorescent lighting fixtures and the controls. So let me emphasize that we have not vetted any of this. We just sat back and said, oh my God, what do we do? And so part of what we would do with the OPM in place and with an architect in place is to go through all of this and determine which things really need to be done and what alternatives there are, and then what the appropriate costs would be. But knowing that it was $6.2 million in their estimate, we knew we couldn't go forward. And when we talked about this last week at the Municipal Building Commission, Councilor was duly impressed and suggested that we come and tell all of you about this. I spoke with the mayor, and he thought that was a good idea too. Because if there is not a taste on this council to spend with the architect and OPM fees somewhere in the range of $8 million, then we can't go forward. I would suggest to you, however, that it's, the Municipal Building Commission doesn't make those decisions. You and the mayor make the decisions as to spend the money. I think the only alternative would be to not have a library, and I don't think that's probably a policy that we want to have in Attleboro, but again, we don't make that decision. I think there's some people here who, from the library, who obviously would advocate to you that we keep the library open. But even so, we have to protect the building. Even if we were to use it for something else other than a library, it still needs a roof, it's leaking, it still needs an HVAC system. So we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here, and we need to look at what we want to do as a city, what we can afford as a city. The Municipal Building Commission is prepared to go forward if we understand that I can tell you that the mayor has said that he wants to go forward with this, but obviously we wanted to bring this to the council's attention. We put together a little timeline.
Jack, if I may, ask specifically, the building commission is going to attempt to prioritize this long list and see if it can be done in phases. Is that how I'm reading what you're saying?
No, I don't think so. I think that we need to make sure that everything they say is correct, and there are some alternatives in here that they've identified. Like, for instance, you want to replace the wooden windows or you want to fix them. We'd have to look at what's cost effective to do that. But you always go through a vetting process with these initial work orders to make sure that everything they say is correct and that, you know, our OPM agrees with it, and, you know, narrow the scope of the work and get a better cost estimate. And so what we're looking at here is that in another week or so, we would put out a request for qualifications to get an OPM on board. And those would be due at the end of January. February 6th, the MBC would choose the top 3 finalists, interview them on February 13th. Whoever we choose as the OPM, we then negotiate and get a contract in place by March 5th. At that point, we would get a determination from the OPM and the architect as to what their cost would be to actually hire them. The mayor would then send down to this council a bond authorization for whatever that number is. And I don't want this number to get a life of its own, but it could be $1.5 million between the two. I'm hoping that it would be less, but I'm guessing that that's what it would be based on some conversations that I had with a couple of people in the industry. If the council held a hearing in March and voted in April, we would then enter into a contract hopefully by April 15th with the architect and the OPM. They would then prepare the bid documents, and around July 1st, the bid documents would be ready to hit the street. And around mid-August, we would have bids that we would hope to accept. The mayor would then send back to you a loan authorization for whatever the cost would be. Could be the $6.2 million, it could be 5.2, it could be 7.2. I don't know at this point. Obviously, the competitive bidding is important, and we are in a rising cost environment for municipal projects. So just want to caution you all on that. The work would then begin in probably around the 1st of October. That would mean that in order to keep the library open for the summer, we'd probably have to bring the temporary chiller in to air condition for July and August, maybe half of June and half of September as well. I'm not sure what they're doing about heat now, but I'm sure they'll figure that out as well. So the hope would be that we would not go through another winter then with our bad exterior conditions, and get the roof done and the exterior work done as soon as possible. And then probably the contractor would probably do the HVAC part and the electrical part after that during the winter. You know, obviously the push doesn't come to shove then until the following June, so with the HVAC. So that's what we're looking at, and we wanted to make sure that you were all aware that that's what we're looking at. We're looking for a direction from this council, obviously not tonight, but we're looking for a direction from this council as to whether this is going to be the policy of the city to spend something on the order of $8 million to rehab the library and make it last for at least another 25 years, hopefully 50.
So we do have some questions, Jack. If you'd be so kind to answer them. Mr. Delissio, I'm going to give you the floor first, but before I give you the floor, I'm going to ask you for a little assistance. If you would, by March 1st, check with our current bonding situation of how much bonding is coming off the books for this fiscal year 20, so that the council can have a picture of our bonding status and volume and what this library project will do to that. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, I have that same concern. I know the city treasurer has gotten us that information relatively recently, but I'll check just to get the most updated numbers. I think this is the issue, is we've kicked the can down the road pretty much as long as I've been involved in council when it comes to the library, and now we're in a situation where we have to pay the piper. I want to follow up on Councilor Conti's question about phasing this thing out. That's a big nut to swallow right now, and I think that with everything that we have going on, my concern is what can we do and what can we afford to do? What needs to happen and how can we afford to pay it? So I think your question to me is in line, and I'll get that this week. I'm not going to wait till March 1st. Jack, is it possible that we're able to actually phase this thing out? Is that something we can look at when we're speaking with the OPM and looking for the OPM and bidding this thing out? Because my gut, without having those numbers right in front of me, tells me that we're not going to be able to do the 6.1 right up top, right?
Okay.
Obviously, we'll bond it out, and I understand how that works, but just for my own ignorance, is that something we can look into doing, is phasing this thing out?
Yeah, I think clearly we have to take care of the envelope of the building.
Correct.
It's bad enough we're going through this winter. I strongly believe that the result will be that taking care of the building envelope will be the most important thing to get done. Whether we can then phase out the issue of the HVAC system and the electrical system, those sorts of things. Maybe we can delay cleaning the masonry work. Again, that's stuff that we need to rely on professionals to tell us the answer to. And whether we could, do half the project one year and half the next year, is certainly a question. I can tell you that and Gail Clark is here as well tonight. We sat in a meeting that Barry Lacasse and Laura Gignac attended, and they seemed to think that we had the capacity to undertake this in one shot. But I also understand that you and the mayor have to balance, because if we spend $8 million on this, there inevitably is something else that we can't spend money on. And so that's why you guys are elected, is to make those tough decisions.
If I can just follow up.
Yes, sure.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think your last point's a really cogent one, and it really concerns me, and I know Mr. Conti and I have had this conversation several times for several years. I think back to when we had the issue with the ballast stones being removed from the roof 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, that we kind of were afraid, like, is this the situation we're going to end up in? The problem with an aging infrastructure as we have in the city and aging buildings, things are going to go wrong, and they're going to not necessarily go wrong. I don't want to be doom and gloom, but things ultimately are going to need to be fixed or replaced. So I think I appreciate you coming down and kind of putting this on our radar. I think we're all have a little bit of sticker shock right now, but I certainly think that Mr. Conti, I'd love to work with you on this. Maybe especially where we're on the Budget and Appropriations Committee. See how we can get some more communication going on this. I mean, I've come to trust the word of Barry and Laura, but, I just don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket going forward with everything we have on the horizon. So thank you, Jack.
I'm confident, Councilor Delacio, that you understand the gravity of this situation, because I stood
100%.
on the roof with you
Yep.
2 years ago as the former director of the library, and we were both, and this year Councilor Dolan was there as well, and we were both amazed that that library has held up as good as it has for as long as it has. But as long as I've been a city councilor, 9 years, I recall the director of the library moving around buckets to catch water,
Right.
the windows, the beautiful windows, drafty as can be. That envelope is in trouble, and it has to be fixed in order to protect the assets of the taxpayers. So, I'm a firm believer that the envelope has to be, we have to fund the repair of the envelope. And that's all I'll say at this time, because I know Councilor Dolan, you have a question, I want to give you the floor.
Thank you. When you had said, when you were going through the punch list of some of the things that are wrong, you said obviously it hadn't been vetted, so at what point is it vetted? Like, do you know when it'll be vetted and by who vets this list out? And when they vet it, are they prioritizing it, or are they seeing, we can let this go, this is, can we let something go, or how exactly, when they vet it, what are they doing to vet it?
Once we have the OPM on board, the OPM will sit down with the architect and the architect's sub-consultants and dive into this report, and then they will come back to the Municipal Building Commission, and we'll spend a night talking about this and what they think can be done, what has to be done, what can be deferred, what the costs would be, what the alternatives are. So getting the OPM on board is the key to that. Part of the problem here, I mean, first of all, we didn't want to come down and ask you for a number not knowing what the number would be. But we're probably going to have to ask you for a significant sum in order to go through that process in the spring, because we need to hire the OPM and we need to renegotiate the contract with the architect so that we can actually do this work. Right now, we're in a position where I don't want to spend any more money under the current contract with the architect without having an OPM on board. And frankly, knowing what this is, we're in violation of the law. We have to have an OPM if it's a $1.5 million project or over. And when we thought it was in good faith, it was 125, well, that's fine. But now that we have this document, we can't go forward without bringing the proper professionals on board.
Can I just follow up?
You may, it's your floor.
So at that point, when it's vetted, would we have to, hypothetically, when we're talking about the sticker shock of, like, hypothetically, if it's $8 million, and we talk about the envelope and structurally, what's most important, if it came down to something to the effect of we could do $4 million now and $4 million later, would we have to pay the OPM again to, like, renegotiate? Would we have to go through all that process again? If we did half of the project now and half of the project hypothetically in 2 years, would we have to renegotiate and have the architects work again and pay them again to go through this whole process?
Well, let me give you a great yes and no answer, because the yes part is that if they're going to be doing 2 rounds of bidding and supervising 2 rounds of construction, there would be an upcharge. There definitely would be. However, we would structure our contract with the OPM and the architect so that we could phase the project. But I'm just sure that if they're going to spend 2 years in town instead of 1, they're going to want more money.
Sure. So we wouldn't have to necessarily go through the process again. We would just have to initially negotiate it. Hey, let's put it out over 2 years instead of 1 year, and the upcharge would be less, than it would if we had to start all over again.
It would be, but the other thing I'm concerned about is that if we don't do it in one project, A, the cost will go up.
Right.
And B, we will lose some efficiency because having a general contractor on site twice is going to cost more money. And I'm also concerned about operating the library. I don't know if there's humidity problems in the building, if it's affecting the books and the other collections. Clearly leaking roofs are going to be a problem, but if we don't fix the HVAC system, how much money are we going to spend each summer for the temporary chiller that we know we're going to have to bring in for next summer? But will we bring it in the summer after that and the summer after that? Right. So I think that there are some difficult financial decisions that we're going to have to come to you with a recommendation on, and I can anticipate those things. I just can't tell you what the answers are right now.
And that's what I feel worried about. Obviously, that's a big ticket price, so I feel worried if we were to spread it out, then there would be some ramification of something we didn't do in the first round that affected something in the second round and made it worse. You know what I mean? When you talk about humidity, if there's something that we don't fix in the first round, that can make something worse later instead of just getting it done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
That's,
we could easily spend $500,000 or $1 million extra.
That's what I'm afraid
If we
of.
did it in 2 phases rather than 1, just because of inflation and because of mobilization for the general contractor. So I recognize the fiscal constraints that we all operate under. But at some point, we are going to make a recommendation to you, and we'll back it up with the numbers as to what the cost is of breaking it up as opposed to doing it in one shot.
okay, thank you.
All set, Counselor.
Thank you, yes.
Counselor Waterman?
Yeah, I'm thinking about the immediacy of the leaks, the severity of the leaks, where the leaks are actually hitting, the kind of damage they may be causing in places that we absolutely cannot afford that damage. Is there anything that we need to address this as we head into winter?
I think the library director might have
Point of
more
order, Mr.
information.
Chairman.
That's what I was hoping, thank you.
Jack, hold on.
Point of order, sir. This, the intent of tonight was as an FYI as to what is going on in the library, and what I feel like this is turning into is a planning, priority, and funding session, and there is no business before the council. This was as an FYI at the recommendation of the chair of this committee, and I do not think we should be getting into the if a biff is what a butters, the current situation of the library through a planning, priority, and funding session that was intended to be an FYI.
Well taken. So, Mr. Waterman, if you would please schedule an appointment with the director of the library.
I will.
For a
Thank you.
tour, so that you can be fully familiarized with what's in this package of information. Counselor Holmes.
I just have one question. The book that you have that tells us kind of all the priorities, I'm wondering if we can just see how many things from the list that they provided are on there. Do you know off the top of your head?
There's actually a brief summary
Yeah.
before the big package that does detail a lot more than what Jack has gone through. And I happen to have a copy of that right here, which I'm going to pass down to you for you to review.
Thank you.
And that should answer your questions. And if you would, when you're done with that, give that to our administrative assistant, so that if any other counselors want that further detail, instead of the big package, it'll be available to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have a package on asbestos removal, we have a package on the building envelope, we have a package on the HVAC system. That's what all of this paperwork is. I have read through all of it. I understand a lot of it, but I would still have questions for the professionals, as to exactly what it means.
So Jack, Councilor Cooper was right on the money in his comments, because many of us lived through the animal shelter and went through sticker shock at the 3.21 million. And that came as a huge surprise, and I did not want that to happen with the library. So when I caught word of what you had learned at the School Building Commission, that's why I asked you to come here. I wanted everyone to hear, and I wanted it to be exposed to the public. I wanted the taxpayers to understand the decision that's coming in front of the council. I wanted the library to understand, and the friends of the library, that they have a window of a couple of months of which to express their interest to the councilors in preserving the library, and that we need more information before we can start to talk about those details. I am very grateful for the efforts of the Municipal Building Commission. I've attended many of your meetings, and I'm very confident that this is going to go as good as it possibly can. Councilor Cooper, did you have something to
I
add?
did, I just, is what Attorney Jacoby has, what you referenced is in electronic form you're going to send to Virginia?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
It's a substantial document.
Great.
There are, numerous pictures of all of the things that are wrong. I mean, they flew drones around the building and took pictures of everything. I guess the only thing I would say is that we'll talk to the mayor tomorrow about talking to the library director as to whether there's any emergency repairs that might need to be done, and perhaps funded out of free cash or wherever that could come from. But certainly, if the leaks are so bad that people are our property inside are in danger, we would certainly hope that we would be able to get some emergency repairs done, and that would certainly be a much smaller number.
Well
Thank
said.
you. And thank you for your bringing this forward in this way, so we are not shocked. I do appreciate that.
It's a big number, Counselor.
Thank you.
Counselor Delacio.
Thank you. Just a question upon the timeline, if I may. Understanding the concerns about what's in front of us, what's not. Jack, you did mention the fact that currently, as we stand, we could be in violation of the contract without having the OPM. Does this timeline, is that going to suffice any sort of violation that we might have as it relates to that?
Yeah, we, city solicitor talked with Deb Anderson at the Attorney General's office, and we do not have to go through designer selection again. We can keep B, H, and A, although we have some leverage over them because we could throw it open again if their price wasn't as reasonable as we thought it should be. But by going through designer selection and hiring an OPM, we cure the problem, and it's just that we can't do anything else now until we cure the problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I just want to inform, Jack, the public, that the next meeting of the Municipal Building Commission is January 2nd at 5:30. It's a public meeting, the public
Yeah.
can attend. And there may be further developments on this issue at that meeting, correct?
Well, I would think if there was some emergency repairs that would be needed, we'd be able to hear about it at that point. But basically, if we follow this timeline, the meeting at the beginning of February will be the key meeting, because that's where we will be going through all of those who've applied to be the OPM, coming up with a short list for interviews, and then spending the next few Wednesday nights interviewing and choosing.
Excellent. Well, I don't think there's any further questions. Thank you, Jack, for being here tonight. Another night without your family during the holiday season. I apologize for that, but I'm very glad, very happy that you came here tonight.
Thank you all, and they understand. They knew the drill when they got me. So, good night.
Thank you, Jack, and
Yeah.
good night.
Jack.
So, committee, I have two motions to bring before you tonight, because all of the other issues that came up in the Municipal Building Commission are not very serious. The sludge landfill building will be finished on January 1st, and everything's good at the Luther Reservoir and the Attleboro Pawtucket situation. Water has not changed, and it really is the library that's got the major story. So, from the docket of December 18, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor that the city of Attleboro engage in a National Grid on-bill repayment program for 36 months to reimburse the installment of reduced energy lighting upgrades. Based on the estimated timeline of the project completion and the projected project cost, the amount for fiscal year 2019 is $32,499.24. As this is an estimate, this amount may require adjustments near the end of the fiscal year. Therefore, the mayor hereby requests your honorable body to transfer $32,499.24 from 1124100-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to the following accounts: $9,898.02 to account 1124100-587385 Citywide Retrofit Lights, $10,360.86 to account 112201000-587385 Fire Retrofit Lights, and $12,240.36 to account 1610100-578385 Library Retrofit Lights.
Second.
Thank you. I think I heard Councilor Dolan first. So, this is an expense of $32,499.24 that actually will realize a savings to the city over a 36-month period. The plan is a National Grid program whereby they hire a contractor to go into the three buildings, the fire department on Union Street, the library on North Main Street, and all of the decorative lights that are downtown with the black cast iron bases, and remove the lights that are in them and replace them with light-emitting diode lights and economical fixtures that don't use as much electricity. So the life of the LED lights is much longer than the lights that are in there now, and the $32,000 is to pay that contractor to replace those lights, and then we pay back National Grid over 36 months, that $32,499.24, and when it's paid off, we realize all the savings of using the more efficient lights. That's about the best way I can explain that. So this is money that will save the city money. And that concludes my comments. Do we have any questions?
No.
Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. From the docket of December 18, 2018, I make a motion regarding the need to make capital repairs to the Sanford Street Municipal Parking Garage and to appropriate $375,000 from account 1-000-359-000 underground undesignated fund balance free cash general government to fund 3554 Sanford Parking Garage.
Second.
Councilor Dolan. Much like the library, the Sanford building has been in a state of disrepair for as many years. And Councilor Dolan and Councilor Pobis, I think you were with me when we toured the Sanford Street parking lot during our capital improvement tour. And there we saw that the parking garage had some serious structural issues that need attention. So it turns out that Chapter 90 dollars that we get from the state to repair our sidewalks and roads can be applied to the parking garage. And what the administration is recommending is $100,000 of that. I think it's $1.2 million and change from Chapter 90 dollars will be allocated to the Capitol Street garage, and that the council would fund $375,000 out of free cash, which is where we have been funding our capital improvements project in prior years, to complete a $475,000 renovation project to the garage that will stop the deterioration, repair the drainage, repair the spalling that's on the concrete, and there is a 13-page report from Kleinfelder SEA Consultants, which is available through the administrative assistants that details, just like the library, all the things that need to be done to the parking garage to keep it from becoming unsafe. The parking garage is not in immediate danger of becoming unsafe, but it is in danger of the elements are exposing structural framing, and the asphalt pavement is deteriorating, and the drainage piping largely needs to be replaced in order to preserve the building. So this is, much like the library, an allocation that uses the Chapter 90 dollars and our free cash to put the Sanford Street building out of danger. And that concludes my comments. Do you have any questions?
No.
Councilor Jackson?
Thank you. So, do you know if in that report, I know it looks like it's pretty thick, will they fix, like there's some sidewalks that are broken up around in that area? So will that be included in that as well, since it's Chapter 90 funding?
No. This $475 is strictly for the parking garage and the pavement that's underneath the parking garage.
Okay.
So it is for the roof level and the first level, the stairway, the closet that's a storage closet, the asphalt underneath it, the drainage system that's involved in. And the most serious part, Counselor, is the structural beams that actually hold that second floor up, which have shown years ago structural cracking, which they took emergency measures years ago to repair. But there's talk in the report that after we make all these repairs, that's something that's gonna continue to have to be watched.
Thank you.
Councilor Cobus.
Not to get too off topic, but those sidewalks in that area, I've sent the request to the mayor to prioritize sidewalks in that area to be fixed ahead of some other ones.
Chapter $90 could repair those sidewalks.
Sorry to get off topic.
That's okay. Councilor Delizio.
It's getting scary.
Yes, it is.
These are things we've been talking about for some time now. So are you able to get that report to all of us as well?
Yes, it's available from the administrative assistant.
All right, thank you. But just to follow up on Counselor Jackson and Counselor Cobus's point, is there any way to incorporate those sidewalks into the project at this point? Is that ship sailed? Because I know in the past, other projects, we've done that. So
It would be at a greater cost.
it's got to get done at one point or another. So we're in these situations now because we're like, you know what, we'll take care of it at this point, to Counselor Dolan's point earlier. You got to miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So if we're in a situation where we can at least look at it and ask the question, then at least I think we'll know, because those sidewalks, they're used by patrons of the YMCA, local churches, local businesses that park there, and if we wait until it gets to that point where it is, at that point where it has to absolutely be replaced, then it's probably too late.
So are you advocating including the sidewalks under chapter $90, or are you advocating including the sidewalks with a shared cost of free cash in chapter $90?
I'm advocating asking them questions.
Okay, good.
How can we do it most cost effectively?
Okay, you all set?
Absolutely,
Councilor
thank you.
Cooper.
Only thing I would add to that is there CDBG money to do sidewalks. We did that over by Swank. That was done with CDBG money to create interconnectivity of neighborhoods. So perhaps there's an opportunity for that.
So I don't think I'm gonna amend the motion to include the sidewalks around. I think what I'd like to do is put to the full council the question, are they willing to fund $375,000 out of free cash to be matched with $100,000 of chapter $90 to save the Sanford Street garage in this fiscal year? Does that make sense? Yes, Councilor DePere.
Thank you, Councilor Conti. So tonight, we all received a communication from Deb Gould with regards to some additional funding that's going to be needed in other areas. And our general conversation tonight has been a heavy weight on spending and things that are necessary, but I think it's, the only comments that I really want to make about this is we really need to super duper prioritize the things that we're spending money on. Some educational needs are going to be required to be paid for and things like that. I understand that we need to protect and repair certain things, but again, to echo Deb Gould's comments in the memo that she sent to all of us, that any additional funding that's coming out of free cash with regards to things that are 100% necessary this fiscal year, I think it's something that we need to really pay attention to and focus on. Is there a digital copy of that particular report that could be sent out to me specifically?
I don't know that there is, but I will scan my copy, which has my notes on it, and I will make that available to you.
To echo Councilor, we kick the can down the road all the time, but there are some things that are coming down the road that we can't kick. So that really concludes my comments for this evening. So.
Yes, Councilor, you're reflecting the situation where there is a extraordinary amount of demands on the city and a very limited ability of the city to generate cash. And that's always been the case, and that always will be the case. It's a difficult situation, yes.
If I may, it has always been the case, but I see it almost a little more urgent, the ability or the earmarks that have been put on free cash specifically for this fiscal year in a variety of ways. And it's the way I referred to it earlier is like I get a $5 gift card to Target, and I spend that gift card over and over and over and over again in my visit and end up spending $100 instead of just spending that $5. So it's something that gives me great pause to say an immediate yes to something like this, knowing that they're potentially, though very important, there may be other important needs that the public may not necessarily be aware of yet, but that we are. So, and it's just, anything that comes through with regards to spending of free cash is going to be picked over by this counselor specifically very closely.
Well
Thank
said.
you.
And that's good, because the reason, one of the reasons why you're feeling that way is because the city has more free cash this year than it has in recent history, with 3 million and change in free cash, enabling more projects to be done. And it is scary when you see $500,000 go here, $500,000 go there, like the
It's not
dam.
Oprah.
Like
Again, you
like the
get a
damn
capital
dam.
improvement.
Right,
Get a
it's
capital
not like
improvement.
Oprah. So, it is a difficult decision to weigh, just like Finberg Field. Are you willing to give up something, or are you willing to restore it in its entirety? That's the issue that we'll be facing. Councilor Delizio.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Vice President Pregram, I'm with you 100%. What I would say is I've never been one to advocate from going from stabilization, free cash. I think we have to be very specific, and we need to look and be creative, right? Whether it's Chapter 90, whether it's CDBG, which is a great way to look at it, we have to be creative because it's an aging city. And we can't stress that enough. The infrastructure, these buildings, it's aging, and we're going to have a lot of tough decisions in front of us. And I think, the challenge in front of this council is going to be, how do we approach this? Nice to have, need to have, short-term, long-term, intermediate, and there's going to be things that aren't going to be able to get done right now. And we really have to look at it and be very scrutinous when we look at the prioritization of these projects as they come down.
Well, I don't want to let the discussion go beyond the scope of my committee's decision. The question to my committee members is, do you want to put in front of the full council a motion to appropriate $375,000 from free cash for the Sanford Street renovation project? Councilor Cooper.
Thank you. I think a question maybe to be answered prior to that question to the committee might be that we asked about the library. Is there an opportunity, or is there a priority within that $475,000 of things that, need to be fixed versus can we do, can we prioritize the entire thing in a different way to get to the ultimate goal, but not spend $500,000 on the Sanford Street garage?
So in reading the report, my interpretation of the report is no.
No. Okay,
No.
thank you, I appreciate that.
Right. And the report is very specific, and I don't think it can be misinterpreted. So we'll make sure that we get it out to all councilors before you have to make the big decision, so you can see what I've seen and what the committee has seen.
Okay, great,
and-
thank you.
And make a wise decision. Councilor Perico?
I guess my final comment with regards to this may not necessarily be specific to saying yes to that, but I think maybe it would be helpful if we had a list of potential uses for that funding from the administration. So then that way we could, it's not so we're gonna, this one came down the road faster than this one, or this one got left off the mayor's communication, so it has to come in 2 weeks later. Like, I would like to see what his general plan is. And I know that this isn't necessarily specific to this topic, but to make a decision with regards to this specific topic, I kind of need to know what else he has plans for it with, so that then we, as a municipal council, can help aid him in prioritizing whatever that list should be.
Well, Council, that's why we get a capital improvement plan every year, and that's why we write a message to the administration after getting the capital improvement plan.
But
And I do expect the capital improvement plan to be delivered to this council on February 1st per the charter this year, and I've made it clear to the mayor and to the administration that my expectations are exactly that. Upon receiving that capital improvement plan, you have a fresh new list of all the emergencies that are in the city. Councilor Dolan, did you have a question?
Well, I think what Vice President Parika might be saying is not just in regards to capital improvements.
Right,
Is
that would be
So
fine.
in other words, like,
that would be.
we have $10 million and we have all these different things, whether they're capital improvements or any other issues that we've discussed that may arise that we need to, for educational purposes. So that way we have a list of 12 things and we can be like, maybe we should do, instead of making, so if we make a decision on this and then something bigger comes down, and we're like, oh, I wish I could take that back and put it over here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for bringing
So
that up.
other than, I think she was just saying, other than capital improvements.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, I get that now.
Thank you, Counselor Dolan, for
Yes, Counselor.
paraphrasing for me. No, I needed you to do that, so thank you.
On topic now. With 375
No, I just
full
have
council.
a very quick question that would help me make a decision as far as priorities, and to jump on what Councilor Parika and Councilor Delissio were saying. One of the things that would help me make a decision, if we could find out what the usage looked like for the garage.
I can get that for you.
That, I mean, if it's 90% empty 5 days a week, then, you know, why spend the money?
Yep,
So that would help me. Thank
it's a
you.
good point, thank you. Any other issues before we take the vote? Yes, Council Cooper?
I feel like we got that not too long ago.
We did.
We did
It's
during
available.
the
It's readily
tour.
available.
Okay.
I mean, it generates money and I can get all that.
Okay, great.
It's all readily available.
Thank you.
Yep. So you're comfortable for the vote?
Yeah.
I call for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
I will say aye. Can I add something to that?
No, you can say aye or nay.
I'll just say aye then.
Yeah. Council Dolan?
Yeah, I,
Okay. Passes unanimously. There'll be a lot more discussion when we get to the full council, and it doesn't have to come up to the full council immediately. There's some work to be done. I plan on sitting on this for a little while before it goes to the full council, and make sure that we're all comfortable knowing the full environment before we take this on. So that concludes the business that the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee has to bring before the council, before the committee this evening. I make a motion, we adjourn.
second.
Thank you, Counselor. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I declare the committee adjourned at 7:51. Thank you for your rapt attention.
Transportation and traffic is canceled for this evening.
Public safety emergency management is canceled this evening.
Besides,
Where are we? Did she just cancel?
Because you have guests.
Why is, I feel like we're out of.
Done, public safety was canceled?
Yes.
Was canceled?
No.
Councilor Waterman, are you gonna go? Because
So,
You're up.
I know there's a guest, I
I
think.
think we'll go ahead. I call the Personnel and Human Services Committee to order at 7:52. And let's see. Committee members present. Peter Blair, and Sarah Reynolds is not present. So I entertain a motion from the docket of December 18, 2018, to approve the request of the mayor to confirm the appointment of Catherine Fierick to fill the two-year term of Economic Development Director.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. At this point, there is, and I meant to catch you before, but there was 1,000 things going on. This was a temporary appointment that the mayor is allowed to do under the charter. There is no need to vote this at this time. My recommendation would be that once she's in the city, she's in DC right now, I know you've spoken to her on the phone.
Yes.
That we immediately get her before the council, and I would reach out to her now to set that date, to come speak to us at our first meeting in January, either to your committee or to the full council. We'll suspend the rules and invite her to come to be introduced to this council and the community, but there is no reason to vote this evening.
So I
Sorry
withdraw
about
that
that.
motion.
My apologies, I should have.
No problem.
I have a comment, though. Can I comment, Councilor? Yes. Can I comment on that? Councilor Waterman, can I comment on that?
Please.
I'm a little disappointed that I don't think anybody in the council has met this individual, and it is a little bit, they've already been hired. It's kind of leaving us to no other choice. So I do look forward to meeting this individual, and I just want to say that in the future, if we budgeted this money, and it would be nice if we had been introduced or had known what was going on a little bit. And that concludes my comments.
Yeah, that's not Ty's fault, that's administration.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, I
I
agree
wasn't saying
entirely.
anything, yes, I wasn't.
We need to hold off.
Yeah.
It's a temporary appointment. No problem. So I withdraw the motion? for the time being. Okay. So, from the docket of December 18th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to confirm the appointment of Paulo Salguero Jr., 9 Richard Street, Attleboro, to the Traffic Study Commission, term to expire February 2021.
Second.
Are there any questions or discussion that the committee has? Well, I would say on my end that I have known Paulo for about a year, that he's a very dedicated servant to the city. He has excellent credentials. He has his master's degree, and he'll tell us about that in a second. But what I'd like to ask us to do is to invite Paulo up to just introduce himself to us for a minute. If you would, please, Paulo. And thank you for coming.
Good evening. Paulo Salguero, 9 Richard Street. Do you want me to just tell a little bit about myself, or?
Sure. Go ahead, and why you want to be part of this particular commission.
Sure. So, grew up in Attleboro. We moved here, finished up 3rd grade here, and went through public schools. Went to Bristol Community College first, then went to George Washington University, and then Anna Maria College, finished my bachelor's there. Finished my master's degree there in criminal justice. Currently work as, I just got a new job as an admissions coordinator for a medical school. So we handle admissions there, kind of like the front end, people applying, we handle all their applications, make sure they have everything in line. Have a radio program here on WARA. We do that once a week. Just try to stay involved. We do different forums. We do different, right now we're doing a hat and mitten drive in Attleboro. And so I kind of just want to stay involved and help the community, so that's why I put my name in for the Traffic Study Commission. So if you guys have any questions, happy to answer them.
Does the committee have any questions?
No, we got one there though, Ty.
Please, Councilor Copus.
Paula, thanks for coming in. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
I know on your radio show, you always ask people at the end of the show if they could meet any person in history.
Yeah.
Who would they want to meet? So who would you want to meet and why?
Oh, man. I also give my guests time for that question. I think, does everyone know James Michael Curley? Have you heard of James Michael Curley? Mm-hmm. So he was mayor of Boston, governor of Mass, congressman. He actually won an election while he was incarcerated in jail. So he's quite the individual. So I think I'd probably want to meet him. If I had to ask him a question, it'd probably be if he can meet anyone from history, what would you want to ask them? But probably James Michael Curley might be up there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
No. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Paul. So I would like to call for a vote. All the ayes?
Aye.
And I say aye. So the vote is opposed.
Motion passes.
Pardon?
Motion passes.
Motion, I know that. Motion passes 2-0.
3.
3, excuse me. Okay. From the docket of December 4th, 2018, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to confirm in accordance with Section 3-3B, the Attleboro Home Rule Charter, the appointment of Courtney Wunschel to fill a 3-year term of the Superintendent of Water, term to expire February 2021.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions or discussion? I will. Let me just, Courtney, would you please come up? Thank you for coming. Courtney gave me a tour of the Water Department 2 Fridays ago, and I was very impressed. I got to meet a number of the water department employees as a result, as she passed by her staff. And we'd like to have you share why you would like to be the acting, not the acting, but the permanent water department director.
Sure. I'd love to start with a little bit of background about myself. I was born and raised in Pawtucket, right down the street, still live there. I attended Rhode Island College in the late 90s and graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Chemistry. When I went to college, I really thought I was going to spend my life in academia and be a college professor. Sometimes things don't work that way. So I fell into the world of water treatment. And it was a happy accident. It's actually one of the best things that ever happened to me. I loved it right away. I still love it. I love going to work, even after 13 years, and I would never want to do anything different than what I'm doing right now. When I started with the city, I actually started in the lab in late 2005. I was promoted to lab manager a couple years later in 2008. At that point, I attended a course in microbiology at Rhode Island College in order to take over the certification for the lab. I still hold the certification because right now there's no one else on staff with the educational qualifications to be able to hold the certification. During the time as lab manager, I got my grade 4 treatment and distribution license. Those were done in 2008 and early 2010. In April of 2010, I was promoted to assistant superintendent under Christine Millhouse, and that's actually where I stayed until this January. Over the years, I've actually been involved in an awful lot of projects with the water department. There's a few that I think are certainly most important and that I'm most proud of. The first one that comes to mind is when Christine retired in 2004. There was a gap between her retirement and Paul Kennedy coming over from wastewater. At that point, the Wading River treatment plant had to be shut down. There was years and years of deferred maintenance at the plant with the filter beds. So in 2014, we were at a point, the water quality coming out of the plant was not as good as it could have been, and we weren't getting the quantity of drinking water out of the plant. So in late 2014, and the project went into 2015, we did a full rehab of the filter beds, dug out all the existing sand, refilled new pumps, soup to nuts on the filter beds. Because of that, we have super high quality water coming out of Wading River. The plant's back to full capacity. We were hard pressed to get, some days probably 10% of our water from that plant. Now we average over 30% just out of the smaller plant. And the filter beds are now maintained on an annual basis, and it's in the budget, and it's how it should have been all along. The other project I want to mention is actually still ongoing, but almost done after a very long haul, and that's the rehab of Luther Station and Dam. Luther Reservoir is our smallest reservoir, but it is integral to the function of our entire system because our largest reservoir, which is Manchester, is filled almost solely from transfer of water from Luther. Like Wading River, Luther had been neglected for years. Paul Kennedy and I actually worked together on initiating the rehab project. And when he went back to wastewater last January, I took it over, and we are almost completely done. And the last project I want to mention is revamping of the cross-connection program. Over the years, for quite a few years, the program was out of compliance with the state. There's two portions of it. One is cross-connection surveying of facilities out in the distribution system, and the other is the testing of backflow devices out in the system. The start of revamping this was done by actually both Christine and I, and that went through 2012 and 13. So at the end of 2013, we were within compliance of testing. And then later on, with Paul Kennedy, we got the survey portion of the program back into compliance, and that's where it's been since 2015. The other thing I do want to mention, because I know it's come up with council, is that morale has been an issue in the water department in the past. I can tell you it's improving greatly, and it continues to improve. One thing I've started is I have a group of supervisors that take over each area of the department. I meet with them all in a group actually it was Friday, now it's Thursdays. It gives them all a chance to see what each other is doing. And what we've found is that, when we have a chance to sit down and see what the other areas of the department are doing, it starts to promote teamwork. I actually have people offering to help each other, and it hasn't always happened in the past. And now I'm seeing it with those 5 people all the time. It's actually worked so well that I've begun to meet with the smaller groups that work under these people, and I've been doing that once a month, and I'm starting to see the same thing with those groups. I've worked really hard in the time I've been with the water department, and I look forward to continuing the hard work for as long as you'll have me.
Yes, please.
So Courtney, there was an explosion of activity when Paul Kennedy took over the superintendent role, and I admired his drive because I didn't realize there were so many projects that needed to be attended to. For example, I was not aware that the Wading River filter beds were not being renewed according to the way that they were designed, and as a result, it failed. And I was very much involved in the conversion of the analog to digital SCADA system in your plant, and the connection to the Wading River and all of that. Most people in Attleboro, I think, don't fully understand how expansive your department truly is. It's enormous. But my question to you is that should you become the superintendent of the water department, do you see a spirited level of revitalization of projects in the department akin to what was being done by Paul Kennedy? Or has most of what needed to be done has been done?
When Paul came in, we spent a lot of time over the first several weeks with, just sitting down, and, his words to me were, the department the best, what really needs to be done, because it doesn't seem like there's been a lot done over here. And what we chose to do at that time was projects like the Wading River plant, where it was shut down. Christine retired, and she announced her retirement, and I announced I was shutting down Wading River. So there were desperate projects like that. Luther Station was in danger of failure. Blake's Pond Dam, which is actually completed as well, was in danger of failure. We've gotten through everything that's in imminent danger of completely not working anymore. The next thing that I think is getting pretty desperate, and I think people in many neighborhoods in Attleboro agree, is a rehabilitation of the distribution system. Particular streets, I would say Reed Street is the worst. We average 4 to 5 main breaks that disrupt that entire area of the system into South Attleboro every single year. This particular year, I think we've had a half dozen. So I think that should be the next big thing.
So if I could follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So it's difficult to drain a swamp when you're being bitten by alligators, right? And this is what's going on with you with the water main breaks.
Mm-hmm.
But do you see a need in the water department for long-term planning, like a 5-year plan or a 3-year plan on top of the emergencies that you have?
For the water mains specifically, it's
For the department?
for the department. Yeah, I mean, there are other desperate projects that are up there. We do have 2 dikes at Manchester that they're high hazard, the east and south dike. They're both out of compliance, poor condition, and it's been one of those items. It's been on the CIP since, I believe, 2009, and it's always that something else is more in danger of failing than those. But, that would be certainly the next. The water mains are much past a 3 to 5 year. They
Any
would
other
outlast
questions?
me.
Please.
First of all, welcome to City Council.
Thank you.
I've had the pleasure of working with Courtney as Public Works Chair now for the last couple of years, and I do recommend her to be our superintendent, not only on a personal level from working with her, but also through talking with our acting superintendent, previously Paul Kennedy, who recommended Courtney as well. She comes highly recommended through him, and also through Michael Burgess, who is a former superintendent also of water. Spoke with him just recently. So I would advise my counselors, or suggest to you that you consider Courtney as our superintendent. She's been standing her ground for quite some time now as acting superintendent. So I ask my colleagues to please support her appointment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you share with us, Courtney, what you have done for updating yourself with trainings the last couple months?
I have. Recently, I believe it was November, I don't remember the exact date, the Personnel Department provided a citywide training that was offered to all assistants and department heads. And I did attend that, and that training, it was a couple hours, and it was based mostly on effective communication, motivating employees that sometimes might not want to be motivated. There was also another course that I attended voluntarily in early October, and that was through DEP and Mass Waterworks. And that was, the title of it was Being an Effective Boss or Being a Better Boss, somewhere along those lines. And that one, again, it dealt with communication with your employees, how to motivate, progressive discipline. It got into HIPAA law. And most importantly, I think for me, was supervising people that you used to be coworkers with. That was extremely valuable. I have, when I'm fully staffed, a department of 32, and I've worked side by side with, I want to say, 20 of them. So that was extremely useful as well.
Thank you. Yes.
No, Todd was first.
I just have a couple of quick, straightforward questions. Obviously, I'm very impressed with the technical side, the technical background in all the projects. That's impressive. So 3 quick questions. First, in your mind, what makes a good leader? Second one, how do you personally deal with conflict within the department? And then finally, how do you, as the leader of the department, help to develop and work on and support the careers of the individual employees?
Sure, I'll start with the first one. I think the best way to be an effective leader is to lead by example. Get down in the trenches, know what you're doing, and if you don't, you figure it out awful quick. I do make it a point to get as much face-to-face time with every single one of them as I can. I'm sorry, what were your other 2 questions? I'm a little nervous.
What makes a good leader? And then how do you deal with conflict within the department?
Conflict within the department, in the past, the way conflict was handled wasn't always consistent. I try to be consistent. If I see conflict, a lot of the times things were pushed off. I don't do that. If I see something, I will sit somebody down as soon as possible. When you have conflict, you need to sit down with somebody face to face, deal with them with respect. You know, just because somebody's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, it doesn't make them an evil person. You know, there was a lot of issues in the past with management that actually got upset at the person instead of the situation. And, you know, it's not a way to let things happen. And, you know, these issues don't sit around like they used to. And what was your third thought? I'm sorry.
In the last one was just, how do you help develop the individual workers? I know for me, it's always a point of pride when people that work for me are promoted or in whatnot. So how do you sort of try to address the careers of the individuals?
Right. It's a union environment, so you're kind of stuck. Unfortunately, you can't give, you know, rewards and raises and that sort of thing. We have a good example is years ago, and it's one of the reasons I actually got my treatment license, is there is a huge shortage of treatment operators in the state of Mass, and I'm pretty sure throughout New England. So the city had started an operator and training program where we would bring in employees that had no experience, no licenses, and we would try to train them. And it's been somewhat effective. It's been more effective the last couple of years. I actually provide training materials to these guys when they come in. I have sat down and done practice tests and math problems, and, you know, I would have somebody, for example, having a hard time with the distribution portion of their testing to go and get these licenses. And I would make time to bring them in on a day shift, if they were an off shift, and send them out with the crew and see what those guys do all day. So to give them, you know, on-site experience instead of just sitting reading a book, because we all know we learn better once we're thrown into the trenches. The department actually pays for the trainings, pays for the classes for these licenses, reimburses everything, and, you know, they're all given all the help they need. And we've gone we've gone from the last several years of having not enough licenses, where right now I have space for 5 head operators, and I actually have 6 of them. I have one of them that's waiting for a retirement to be able to move up. So I actually have in excess of licenses, which is very, very unusual in Mass.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kovitz. Councilor Dolan?
I'm all set, thank
You're
you.
all set. Does anybody else have anything to add? Questions? Seeing none, we thank you for coming,
Thank you for having me.
and we will hold a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? None. The vote passes 2-0. Go to the council.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
We have 2 more items. We have 1 more individual waiting, so I would like to go to this, let the individual come up. So, from the docket of November 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to confirm the appointment of Patricia D. Svensson of 301 Pike Avenue to the Board of Library Trustees, term to expire February 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion or questions? And we will invite Patricia up here. You like to be called Tricia, right? We thank you very much for coming on short notice.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
And if you could share with us a little bit about your background. I especially was intrigued with what you've done with libraries in the past, and why you're interested in the trustees in particular.
All right, well, I was kind of sad to hear the situation that our library is in. I consider a library an essential part of a community. It's the place that informs, educates, entertains, enriches, and I can't imagine a city without one. So, fingers crossed that we're going to be able to make our library be what it should be. I'm a big user of a library, and way back, right when I graduated from college, I had a degree in elementary education. I did a substitute position as a librarian just for 2 months, but I thought I was in heaven. I loved it. So, but after that, I had children, and I stayed home and was with them, so I worked part-time. I'm a 40-year resident of Attleboro. I worked at in the Attleboro School Department, teaching English as a second language. I was the director of the Adult Basic Education Program, and I taught GED classes there as well. Did that for about, kind of 15 years. Then I moved over to, I decided I needed to go back to school and get a master's degree, and there was no question what it was going to be in. It was in library and information studies. So I returned to school, and while I was in school, I became the children's librarian in Plainville. So I worked there for a few years. I became the interim director there for a short while. But then I was invited to go to North Attleboro and be a librarian, a school librarian in an elementary school. So I decided that's the route that I wanted to take, where I had the degrees in education and library. So I went there, and I worked there for 22 years. I just retired in June. And right away, I'm over at Bishop Feehan, working part-time. They needed a part-time librarian for short term. I probably won't be there for very long. So I have a lot of experience there. I also have some volunteer experience in library. When my children were young, I worked at, it was Peter Thatcher Middle School, and I volunteered there. I helped Judy Hebert when she was at Attleboro High School do an electronic conversion when our records were going from that paper card catalog to the electronics. Then, what else did I do? Oh, I went to, in 2004, I became part of a program, and I went to South Africa, a town called Mbazwana. It was in Zululand, and I lived with a Zulu family for the summer, and every day I went and established a library there. It was an organization called Inform the World, and they got librarians from all over the world. The people that went with me were from Switzerland, Australia, Canada, and the US. And so we were assigned to different schools, and we set up libraries there. Then in 2006, I was asked to go to Honduras to set up a library at a mission, so I went and did that. Did most of the work here, got a lot of people to help me here, so that when we went down there, the card catalog was already there, and we brought a lot of books with us. And then in 2006, it was I was asked to go back again. It was I wasn't planning on going, but somebody was unable to go, and she asked if I would fill in for her. When I got down there, they said, well, will you make a library at the school too? So I did that, but it wasn't as well established because I didn't have as much time. A week is not time enough to really put together a beautiful library, but we did the best that we could. So that's pretty much my experience in libraries. To be a trustee, way back in the 1980s, Bill Hannon asked me if I would be on the trustees, but at the time I was the director of adult basic ed, and I had to teach on Wednesday nights, so I couldn't go to the trustee meetings. So I just said that I couldn't do it at that time. So now when the invitation came to do it now, I thought, well, there's no time like the present, and it might be my last chance, so anyway.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Please.
Yes.
Trish, thank you for volunteering to be on the Board of Trustees of the library. I can't imagine a better addition to that board. But the library is going to be entering a difficult period. This $6 million question, or $7 million question in front of the council's a very serious undertaking. And I think that the library trustees may be able to play a role in all that. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, as I was sitting here listening to you, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what kind of a fundraiser? I'm a member of the Friends of the Library, on the membership board, and I'm thinking, what kind of fundraiser can we do? Maybe we could get $1 million. We certainly can't get $6 million, but
We'll take the million.
so I'm not sure. I'm sorry about my. Anyway, so ideas about it. Fundraising, I don't know yet. I don't know yet, but I would be willing to work at it and look at it.
It's okay. You don't have to know, Trish.
Thank you.
Happy that you're
I won't
willing
pass
to
that
be
test.
on the board. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Me,
Please.
please, thank you. Hi, Trish.
Hello.
First of all, thank you so much for volunteering. What a background. Wow, huh? Yes. Like, wow.
Absolutely.
I just want to compliment you on the beautiful article in the Bishop Fan pamphlet that they send out, the quarterly. It's a nice article about you and Alan, so thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, we shall vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The vote passes 2-0. Thank you. We'll go to the council. And we have one more item on the agenda. We back up one item. From the docket of November 20th, 2018. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to accept the memorandum of agreement with the Attleboro Crossing Guards Association, which amends the current collective bargaining agreement to meet the upcoming changes in the minimum wage rate. It's anticipated that current funding levels within the budget should be sufficient to cover this increase. Do I have a second?
Second.
Upon investigation, we do have a rising minimum wage in the state, and this particular association needed to be brought up to code, and they will be getting $12 an hour if this passes. Please.
Ty, I think that only involves a few members. It's not across the board.
I'm not sure how many there are, and I would appreciate...
This just...
Thank you.
This increase is just going to affect a few of our crossing guards. We do not raise, as industry doesn't, which I not agree upon, we don't raise everybody's salary at minimum wage. So this just involves the people that aren't obtaining the minimum wage at this time.
That is correct.
Right.
So the crossing guards who are below the minimum wage
Right.
will be raised.
Right.
Yes. Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. I shall call a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The vote passes. And that is all the business of the
I have
Personnel
one.
and Human Services Committee. Yes.
I just have one thing on the first motion that we talked about that you
Right.
held. Do you mind if I comment about that, or
Please.
would you like to? So,
Please do.
thank you. I did speak with the mayor and with Mr. Lavoy today about, from my perspective, what I saw to be a better fit for Mr. Lavoy in the planning board. I spoke to Gary, I spoke to the mayor, so we are going to be seeing Mr. Lavoy's name, just not for traffic study at this time. So I wanted to update all of you. I spoke to him earlier. Like I said, and I spoke to Council Waterman when we first got in, but I didn't, and, you know, he's been sitting here tonight.
Yes.
I didn't want anybody to sort of question what was going on. So for clarity purposes, that's what's happening. His name will be withdrawn for traffic study and come down in the next communication from the mayor for a spot on the planning board. Thank you.
So we thank you for your patience, and we congratulate you on maybe getting something else that you like. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A vote on the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes. We are adjourned.
Calling ordinance elections and legislative matters to committee to order at 8:28. The members are Council Waterman and Council Jackson. I'm actually going to read into the record one of plastic bag ordinance right now, so it's going to be a little bit of a long one. And I'm hoping to have a little bit of a discussion and give everybody a little bit of an update on that. From the docket of October 16, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to amend Health Department Chapter 7 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as it pertains to plastic bags as follows. Preamble to bring your own bag ordinance of the City of Attleboro, ordinance change. Add section 7-11. 7-11.1 Declaration of Findings of Policy Scope. The city council hereby finds that the reduction in the use of disposable checkout bags of the retail establishments in the city of Attleboro is a public purpose that protects marine environment, advances solid waste reduction, reduces greenhouse gas emissions, and protects waterways. This ordinance seeks to reduce the number of plastic bags and paper bags that are being burned, used, discarded, and littered, to promote the use of reusable checkout bags at retail establishments located in the city. 7-11.2 Definitions. The following words shall, unless context clearly requires otherwise, have the following meaning. 1. Checkout bag, meaning a bag provided by a store to a customer at the point of a sale for transporting food, merchandise from the establishment. Checkout bags shall not include bags, whether plastic or not, in which loose produce or products are placed by the customer to deliver such items to the point of sale or to the checkout area of the retail establishment. B, laundry or dry cleaner bags or newspaper bags. Or D, bags that are used to contain wrapped frozen foods, meat, fish, or otherwise prepackaged or not to prevent or contain moisture. 2, department shall mean the Attleboro Health Department health officer shall mean the Attleboro shall mean the health officer for the city of Attleboro's health department or his or her designee. 3, recyclable paper bag shall mean paper bag that is 100% recyclable and contains at least 40% post-consumer recycled content and displays in a visible manner on the outside of the bag. 1, the word recyclable or a symbol identifying the bag as recyclable. 2, label identifying the bag as being made from post-consumer recyclable content and the percentage of the post-consumer recyclable content in the bag. Reusable checkout bag shall mean a sewn bag with stitched handles that is specifically designed for multiple reuse that can carry 25 pounds over a distance of 300 feet, is machine washable, and is either made of cloth, fabric, or durable materials such as cotton or linen, or made of durable non-toxic plastics that is polyethylene or polychloride that is generally considered a food-grade material that is more than 4 mils thick. Retail establishment shall mean any business facility that sells goods directly to the consumer, whether for or not for profit, including but not limited to retail stores, restaurants, pharmacies, convenience and grocery stores, liquor stores, seasonal and temporary businesses. 6, single-use carryout bag shall mean a bag made of plastic or other material that is provided by a store to a customer at the point of sale that is not recyclable paper bag or a reusable grocery bag. 7, thin film single-use plastic checkout bags shall mean that shall mean that those bags that are typically with handles constructed of highly density polyethylene, HDPE, low density polyethylene, LDPE, or linear low density polyethylene, LLDPE, polyvinyl chloride, PVC, polyethylene, terephthalate, PET, or polypropylene, or other than woven and non-woven polypropylene fabric that is film is less than 4 mils in its thickness. Regulated conduct. No retail establishment in the city of Attleboro should provide thin film single-use checkout bags to customers except as provided in section 7-11.4. If a retail establishment provides or sells checkout bags to customers, the bags must be one of the following: recyclable paper bag or reusable checkout bag. Retail establishments that make available thin film single-use checkout bags with or without handles are exempt from the provisions of 7-11.4A of this ordinance, are required to provide an in-store collection of the proper recycling of thin film single-use plastic checkout bags. In-store collection locations must be prominently displayed and easily accessible. 7-11.4 exemptions. The thin film plastic bags, typically without handles, which are used to contain produce, meat, bulk foods, wet items, dry cleaning, are not prohibited in this ordinance. 7-11.5 enforcement. The health officer of the City of Attleboro Health Department shall have the authority to administer and enforce this ordinance. For the first violation, the enforcing authority, upon a determination that the violation has occurred, shall issue a written warning notice to the establishment, specifically the violation. The following penalties shall apply. A fine of $50 shall apply for the first violation following an issuance of written warning notices. A fine of $100 shall apply for the second violation, and each additional violation of this bylaw after issuance of a written warning notice. Fine shall be cumulative, and each day of which the violation occurs shall constitute a separate offense. Alleged violation shall be made subject to non-criminal disposition process pursuant in Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 21D. Regulations. The health officer or his or her designee may promulgate guidelines and regulations consistent with the enforcement of this chapter. Effective date. The ordinance will take effect after July 1st, 2019 for retail establishments with a floor area equal to or exceeding 3,500 square feet, or with at least 2 locations under the same name within the city of Attleboro, a totaling of 3,500 square feet or more. For retail establishments with a floor area less than 3,500 square feet, the health officer or his or her designee may exempt a retail establishment from the requirements of this section for a period up to 6 months. Upon finding upon the health officer or his or her designee that the requirements in this section would cause undue hardship, or 2, a retail establishment requires additional time in order to draw down an existing inventory of thin film single-use checkout bags. 7-11.8 severability. It is the intention of the City Council that each separate provision of this chapter shall be deemed independent of all other provisions herein, and that therefore it is the intent of the City Council that if any provisions of this chapter shall remain valid and enforceable.
Second.
Thank you. So, where to begin? So I contacted some stores. So far, I had like a list of about 15 stores I wanted to reach out to. Big Lots, Stop and Shop, Market Basket, and Ciabra all have a policy in place. And I was even surprised about Ciabra. I guess that there's a store in Framingham, so they already have a policy that they've had to roll out. Because this is similar to what's happening all across the state, it seems like businesses are prepared for this. I would like to, in the next week, I'm waiting for, well, I'll just let you know, in the next week, I'd like to reach out to some of the other smaller stores to kind of see how this will impact them, because they may have more of an impact in this than stores like Stop and Shop and bigger establishments. But I'm also waiting for the enforcement piece to the health department to weigh in on this as well. So that's where I am right now with this, and I'm hoping to have a little bit of a discussion if anybody has any comments. Councilor Kogas.
One of the things, I brought with me an article that says why carry-out bag fees are more effective than plastic bag bans. First and foremost, I applaud the administration for introducing this. I think moving in this direction is the right way to go. But I have concerns that doing just a flat-out ban, which is traditionally called a first-generation plastic bag ban, isn't all that effective, because what happens is businesses then feel obligated to give away the thicker plastic bags or the paper bags, which cost more, and then ultimately we don't end up reducing any of the waste. But if you apply a fee and say that all businesses are required to charge 5 cents for a bag, all of a sudden then the cashier is asking, would you like to purchase a plastic bag? And then the consumer is then making the conscious decision to purchase a bag or not. Studies have shown that just the flat-out ban isn't very effective. But I think it might be a step in the right direction. I would encourage you to explore adding the fee piece to it. I know I was just out in California for work, and the entire state has a ban with fees in place, and it's effective. When you go to a store and try to buy something, would you like a bag with that? Oh, no, I'll just carry it out myself or whatever. So in my opinion, this would be a more effective avenue to go down. I don't know if anybody in Massachusetts has done that. I don't know if any businesses within the city are prepared to have the fee. I know in California, at the registers, they would have a little barcode next to the register that they would scan for however many number of bags that the person used. And it was super easy and effective in actually achieving the goals of this and reducing plastic waste. So I'll give everybody copies of this article that I have and encourage us to explore that more, and I'm happy to discuss it more if you want.
Okay. Councilor Jackson, could you make your name and?
Thank you. Sounds like a good idea. My concern, first of all, we have a motion on the floor. So you've read the motion. And I'm guessing that you're not going to actually bring it out for a full vote to the council next week from what you were just stating. But
right.
at least the motion is already there, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. I like that idea of a fee. I don't know how that would work either here in Attleboro because, you have the big Stop and Shops, and what do they need to do if they just, how do they coordinate that in their checkout system if they're just doing it in Attleboro and they're not, maybe they have to do it in Mansfield. I don't know what Mansfield, no, Mansfield's not doing that. But, so that's something we'd have to find out too, like, if they have to upgrade their system, their computer system to when you check out and they have to have that little barcode in there, is it cost effective to just do it for one city, as opposed to not having to do it for the town next door who's banned the bags and is not charging a fee. But I do like that idea, because you're right, you're gonna be mindful, because you're gonna walk, I'm not paying money for a bag. I have plenty of bags in the back of my car I should have brought in. That's the way I see it go. I like the idea of the whole banning of the plastic, and it's nice to know that that the public is now more aware of, because I think a lot of people had thought in the beginning that if we were banning plastic bags, you couldn't be caught with a plastic bag or you get in big trouble. That's not the case whatsoever. If you go shopping in Pawtucket, you go shopping, North Attleboro or something, yeah, you come through, after you've been to Shaw's and you have a plastic bag, you're not going to get in trouble from any of us. Because I too like to use my little plastic bag as a liner in my cabana, in my trash cans. So I support this, but I do like the idea of looking into that charging, whatever it is, just to see if it's cost effective for them to. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I'll just comment just one quick thing. So when I did ask, a lot of the stores, the bigger stores already had a policy in place that was similar to just going to paper. So unfortunately, it's almost like it's being rolled out that way. So we would be, I'm not saying I'm against it, but I just think we would be the only ones doing that because it's not common across the whole state. But go ahead, Councilor.
So I support this as well. And I'm wondering, when you talk about the cost, did you ever go to TJ Maxx? If you buy a water, they have a little piece of paper that they bleep that charges your water. So I would think that would be just a programming thing that would be nothing.
Be something to look into though, because that's a good idea.
So I do support the banning, and I also support the charging, and I also support charging for not only plastic but paper, because I don't want to do this as like feel-good legislation, because I went to Mansfield. I went to 3 stores in Mansfield. I went to Kohl's, they gave me a paper bag. I went to Stop and Shop, they gave me a plastic bag, but it was thicker. It met the millimeters that it was to be what they call it, multi-use or not single-use. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what they call it, but. And the same thing at CVS. So it's a thicker plastic bag, but it's still a plastic bag nonetheless. So they're, in my mind, I feel like they're circumventing
like the marijuana.
The ban. I feel like, so basically, it would be feel-good legislation if we passed this, and then all the stores just got thicker plastic, because those 2 plastic bags that I got, I don't know where they are right now. They're not in my trunk with my reusable bags, because I have no intention.
They're not in your recycling bin, right?
Well, I did hear that, and I don't know if this is true or accurate in any way, shape, or form, but I heard that those are recyclable. I don't know that because, I don't know where those bags are right now. But then also we hear from Waste Management that says that the bags clog up their system. So wouldn't another plastic bag still clog up their system? So I agree with this. I agree with the fee, but I feel the fee would be for both paper and plastic. I also feel that because creating paper bags still leaves a carbon footprint. The whole goal is to make an impact, a positive impact, right? So I don't want to ban plastic bags if everybody's just going to circumvent it and get thicker plastic bags, because it seems like it defeats the purpose of our goal of less plastic. So I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councilor Dis.
Thanks. My understanding is that this is about the thin film plastic bag, because that's what goes through with the waste management. And if you look at, or even listen to what the health agent has said, and we've talked about this before, it's those thin film plastic bags that clog up and break the machines. They're more apt and adaptable to the paper bags as well as the thicker plastic bags. So I think that's really what we're looking at. I was encouraged to hear Diana talk about speaking with different stores. I'd be curious to see what some of the smaller retailers have to say. I think you're right. I think what you're going to see is more and more retail establishments and supermarkets and thing of the like, stores of the like, start to go down this road anyway. I like looking at different options. I've always liked to have different options in front of us. So what Councilor Kobus, I look forward to reading that article. But, it's a lot to bite off right here. So thank you for spearheading it in the manner in which you're spearheading it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that it might be a multi-step. First it's a ban and talk about a fee at the same time. That wasn't introduced with this business. They are the thicker mill are recyclable, but not in, they have to go into the bin at the store. They have special recycling process for that. I don't want to suck the wind out of his sails, but I'm going to anyway. I did meet with the mayor tonight, and he went to Waste Management just today to see the audit, and we're better with our plastics in our recyclables, but not where we need to be. So I think anything that we can do to get there to prevent a substantial increase to our trash bill, we ought to do. I went to a neighboring community on Black Friday. Any of you that know me know that that's a sacred holiday in the Cooper House. And I went out for my typical 19-hour shopping spree, and when I was in a neighboring community, well, not really neighboring, but in the North Shore, that community has a bag ban, and I said to the girl at the counter in one of the stores I was in, how come this same store in my town has plastic, and you guys are giving me plastic paper bags? And she said, oh, the town requires it. I said, well, how did you? She said they just got rid of all the plastic ones one day and brought in paper ones, and that's what we use. So it was fine with me. They carried just fine, and they went home and they went in the drawer, and I'll reuse them. But I think that, we're giving them time in here, whether it's, July, October, whatever, to come into compliance. I think I'm okay with, and I'm awaiting, before I can sort of finalize where I'm at, waiting for the health agent, but I think this is a good step. I don't see it as feel good. I see it as having the potential to save the taxpayers a rate increase in our solid waste removal program. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
So, Councilor, I think it was the Council on Aging about 7 years ago was selling reusable bags for a $1 donation to the senior heat program, and I bought a dozen bags, and I gave my wife 6 of them, and I put 6 in my trunk, and I haven't used a plastic bag since. And it's because I don't need all those plastic bags in my house, and a funny thing happened about 4 months ago. I was at Stop and Shop on Pleasant Street bagging my own groceries in my cloth bags, and the woman behind me said, hey, did you see? And she was pointing to a little kid behind her who's applauding me bagging my own groceries in a reusable bag. And it really hit me that someone that young was thinking of giving positive reinforcement to someone my age bagging my groceries in a reusable bag. It just really struck me. I'm of the age where I look at Barbara's real t-shirt bag where I think that's brilliant. I think that's great. But I think Council Cobus and Council Dolan and Council Delicio, I'm going to join that team and say that I think that this needs to be thought, it needs to be developed further. I haven't heard of anybody who's talked to me on the streets about, opposition to this legislation. And under normal circumstances, I would take an opposition to the city developing an ordinance to try to change people's behaviors, because I think that that's a market-driven obligation. And that's why this fee for a bag at the retail outlet appeals to me, because you can avoid that fee if you change behavior and bring your own bag. So you see, I think that it's better than a ban to have a fee on bags, and there is a legal tightrope that we have to walk on that, whether it can be a tax or whether it has to be a retailer-imposed fee, and that can all be thought out. But I'm in favor of us taking action on the plastic bags. And I think we should do it before Waste Management has an opportunity to hike our rates. And that kind of puts the pressure on your committee to think about how you can get this through the council. You got 1, 2, 3, 4 councils saying we'd like to see this developed over into this fee area. I don't think it's going to be a way where we can generate revenues for the city, but I do think it's a way that we can generate a change in behavior and get rid of plastic bags. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. So I'm going to follow up on a couple of things. So a couple of the stores that I talked to did report that people have been bringing their own bags a lot more the last few years. They've said they've noticed a huge change, so that was encouraging. If we do the fee, keep in mind, some stores may still just decide to do, they may decide that they're not, because they already have a policy in place, so we have to keep in mind, we may do that, but they may decide that they're just gonna do a thicker plastic and they're gonna kind of do the paper, because it's still up to them to decide whether but for the smaller establishments, that could be something that would maybe appeal to some of them. So I can certainly look into that. And then, so the enforcement section, I just want to draw everybody's attention to 7-11.5 is where we're waiting for the health department to speak to. But the other thing I wanted to comment on is 7-11.3. The way this reads right now, anybody who gives out the thin plastic would have to have an in-store collection location. So that means even a dry clean
I think it said it was exempt for dry cleaning, didn't it?
But they would have to then have an in-store bin to collect that thin plastic. Some communities smaller stores do not have to have that, so it would mean that a larger kind of grocery store would have to offer that, but smaller places would not. And I do think that when this comes to when I'm thinking of really looking for the vote, I may make a change there and not include smaller establishments, because that would mean the small corner dry cleaning store would have to also offer that. And I don't know how, but this is,
right?
this is, sorry, 7-11.3, right above it. It says the requires an in-store location.
Right below it says, like, items like food, wet, dry cleaning are.
But they have to offer an in-store location for those thin plastics. Every store has to offer that. So even if you if you have any of that plastic, you have to have an in-store location. Even if you're just like a smaller meat market store or anything like that. And I think that that's a little bit restrictive, and they would have to kind of have a whole plan in place for that.
Then how do they get rid of it?
Yeah, they would have to be set up with recycling and everything, and I think that that's a little bit of a burden. So when I call the smaller places, I'm definitely going to be asking about that. Council Tulsi.
Thanks. Yeah, Council Conti, I agree with what you, if I may, through the chair to Council Conti. My comments are more, I want to take a look at seeing what it is, because my concern, as I've said on this floor a million times, is a fee is a tax, especially to a business. So we want to be cognizant of that. I want to make sure that if we implement anything that might be a fee, that, is that going to get passed down to the consumer? If we so there's just a lot, and I think you're right. I think this whole thing still needs to be flushed out a lot. So I don't want to speak to the specifics of Todd's article without seeing it, but I think, I think we're, for the most part, we're 99.9% on the same page here. But I'm curious, Diana, and I can do some research as well along, what's the cost differential? Is it going to cost these businesses more to go from the thin plastic to the thick plastic or the paper? How does that get passed down to the consumer? So, I just think that there's a lot that we still are looking at. So I do appreciate you bringing this out, but also still giving it the time that we need to really ensure we're making the best decision.
Yes, yes. Council Conti.
Just to quickly clarify, real quick with the fee, there would still be the ban on the thin film plastic, and then it would be a mandatory fee for all paper bags and the thicker plastic bags. And that fee would be kept by the businesses, but it would be a mandatory fee because what they found in California is that if a few stores don't charge the fee, then none of them are going to charge the fee. And then all of a sudden the businesses are paying extra for these thicker bags and the paper bags, which cost more. So if enacted, and I'm just saying we explore. I'm not saying that this is the right thing. I'm saying I mean, it feels like the right thing to me, but I'm just saying we should explore it. But the way it would work is it would be a mandatory fee for all bags that the businesses would keep. They would be required to charge the consumers for that. So it wouldn't be a tax to the city. The city wouldn't make any money off it.
Did you want to say?
Just, we wouldn't be here if people would have taken that, obeyed the rules, and that thin plastic bag went in your trash as opposed to your recycling. If we're going to be environmentalists, or are we going to enforce the rules that are already there? If the people had read that pamphlet from the health department that says these bags are not allowed in your recycling, and they go in your trash, then there isn't a problem. We're looking to save our taxpayers money and save a rate increase. It's up to the person. Education, or most of your stores, I think, will go to paper or plastic, heavier plastic bag, and they, in some way or other, are going to fit the extra cost into the cost of doing business. They're not in business on Monday to lose money by Friday. So if they have an increase in expense, whatever business you're in, you try to fit it in somewhere. Can't keep taking a hit. And I think at this point, you're asking the smaller stores to really take a hit. They can't go up on a can of peas a penny or 2 cents like a big grocery store, and a consumer isn't going to notice it. But if they'll have to go up on something that's probably noticeable. So I think you really have to look at the smaller person and realize that we wouldn't even be discussing this other than we're afraid of a rate increase in our trash. And if the people in the city put the bag in the disposal unit that it's intended to go in, the trash as opposed to the recycling, we wouldn't have had this problem at all. And like I said, we got to decide, are we an environmental group or are we legislators?
So just to clarify my feel-good legislation, my point was, I don't want to pass this if businesses are just going to circumvent it and just go to thicker plastic. And we would still be here even if people follow the rules, because when you put the plastic in the trash, it ends up in a landfill, which ends up there forever. And I get what you're saying.
Ours is burnt.
I'm sorry?
Ours is burnt, I believe.
I'm not aware.
If it wasn't okay to put in the trash, we'd be hearing about that from Waste Management.
Well, my goal was to go beyond the city, beyond waste.
And you're gonna have to get rid of those 2 plastic containers in front of you.
I completely understand that, and I'm totally fine with that. What I'm saying is I'm trying to look past just waste management for the city of Attleboro. So because we don't want to pass this and have all the businesses just go to thicker plastic so that we have more plastic to get around the single-use plastic bag.
Well, they're gonna go to paper. We saved the trees when we went to plastic, didn't we?
Well, I still agree with the charge for paper as well, because you're still having the same carbon footprint as far as cutting down trees or manufacturing paper bags. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to think of beyond Attleboro.
So, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Since this is a motion, and I know you said you're gonna hold off discussing it, so you're gonna look into all the questions that everybody has, and then we can have this discussion further, correct?
Exactly. Thank you, Councilor Jackson, for closing it off. I think that's exactly well said. So we did start the conversation, which was great. A lot of these places, just to say again, they're already moving towards this. A lot of them had mentioned they're already on a cycle to make these changes, so it's really not, the bigger places, we're not impacting them. They're already starting this. If we want to do the fee, I think that's something we can certainly explore, but that's pretty much it. That will conclude everything, and then I do have a couple other updates, so I'm not going to call for a vote.
Point of order, just procedurally, do we need to rescind the second, or how do we?
Did someone second?
Yes.
I did, I seconded it, but I thought we were just leaving it as
Yeah,
a
we're
full
just gonna
motion
leave
as
it.
it is.
Yeah, but you just rescind the second and have the discussion and keep it in committee.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, I rescind my second.
Thank you, thank you. So this will stay in committee. We will look forward to hearing from the Health Department, and then I will keep everybody posted on that. I also wanted to let everyone know, there's a couple, I'm reaching out to the city solicitor and waiting for a response on a few things and hoping for public hearings on some of the new business that had come through. One of them was the hunting ordinance, hoping to have a public hearing in mid to late January on that. I'm reaching out to the police chief and getting an update on how he feels about the ordinance and the way it's written. And then also, city council having their own city solicitor, met with the city solicitor today to go over that, and hoping to get, have some information for the committee on that as well. And that concludes the business this evening. I'd call for an adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
9:02. Thank you.
Reporting for city property and claims this evening. From the docket of December 18, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro to accept the generous donation of 35 electronic musical keyboards with an estimated value of $1,820 from Coelho PTO.
Second.
This is another example of what our PTOs do in Attleboro at the schools. They help support the schools that their children are in. So I would thank them very much. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passed. From the docket is December 18, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro to accept a generous donation of Stop and Shop gift certificates from the Attleboro Elks totaling $1,700 to the Veteran Service Officers.
Second.
This is a tremendous donation. I've been a proud member of the Elks for 53 years now, 54 years. As long as there's an elk, our veterans will never be forgotten. That's their motto. $1,700, I've been here a long time. I've never seen a donation in gift cards for that amount. They have a very active Veterans Committee down there that works diligently with the vets, and I want to thank them personally. I'm not as involved as I used to be down there, but I want to thank them personally for continuing this great tradition of supporting our vets. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. From the docket of December 18, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro to accept the generous donation of Market Basket and Stop and Shop gift certificates from the Holiday Spirit Committee to the Veteran Service Officers totaling $400.
Second.
The girls and the people at City Hall work very hard at this, and you'll see some donations further down the line here. The funds they run and the raffles and whatnot throughout the year, how they put back into the community. This is just one example. Any comments, questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. From the docket of December 18, 2018, I enter a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro to accept a generous donation to the Health Department of $100 in Stop and Shop gift cards and $300 in Market Basket gift cards from the Holiday Spirit Committee.
Second.
Another example is just another way that they take the money collected and funnel it back into the community where it's needed. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. And lastly, I entertain a motion, December 18, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinance to the City of Attleboro to accept a generous donation of $200 of Market Basket gift certificates to the Council on Aging from the Holiday Spirit Committee.
Second.
Don't need to say anything more. We can see that these last three are from the Holiday Spirit Committee, and we thank them very much. Any comments or questions? Having none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Move to adjourn at 9:06.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to call the License Committee to order at 9:06. From the docket of December 18, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the application for renewal of a Class II license for Jeffrey A. Millette of Seekonk at 30 Man LLC to sell used vehicles at 30 Man Street, Attleboro, with 4 customer parking spaces and 23 display spaces.
Second.
I went down there, everything seems fine, and they're all in compliance, and I don't really have any other comments. Do you have any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. From the docket of December 18, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the application for a renewal Class II license for Raymond Klebe of 923 Washington Street for Raymar Auto Sales, Inc., with 7 customer parking spaces and 33 display spaces.
Second.
Again, went down there, everything's in order.
Great.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. From the docket of November 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the application for an amended Class II license from David Montenegro, DBA Old School Auto Sales at 187 Cumberland Ave, Attleboro, with 4 customer parking spaces and 29 display spaces.
Second.
This is if you remember, this is the gentleman that came for the public hearing to amend to add more display spaces. He's done everything I asked him to do. He's amending his license because he wasn't in compliance and, had some issues. And again, he did everything I asked him to come into compliance.
Good.
Does anybody have any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I entertain a motion to approve the application for a Class 3 I'm not sure if I said, from the docket of November 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the application for a Class 3 2019 auto renewal from Marcus J. Vitale, DBA Greco's Auto, 83 Dickens Street, Attleboro, with 10 customer parking spaces and 31 display spaces.
Second.
Okay, so I went down there, I spoke with Mr. Vitale, and he's not really over on his vehicles. He had some issues where, had to move back cars because they were too close to the street. So I don't intend on holding this license. Does anybody have any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Did you have any questions regarding this?
No, I do not.
I entertain a motion, from the docket of November 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the application for a Class 2 2019 auto renewal license from Marcus Vitale, DBA Greco's Auto, 83 Dickens Street, Attleboro, for 10 parking spaces and 31 display spaces.
Second.
Anyone have any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. From the docket of November 20th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the following applications for Class 2 auto renewals for 2019, and I'm just going to go through them as one motion. Best Buy Automotive and Tire, Inc. at 725 and 731 Washington Street, Attleboro, with 4 customer spaces and 20 display spaces. Route 123 Village Auto Sales, Inc. at 1076 Pleasant Street, Attleboro, with 15 customer parking spaces and 15 display spaces. County Auto Sales and Service, Inc. at 42 County Street, Attleboro, with 10 customer parking spaces and 28 display spaces. Landis Enterprises LLC, DBA Landis Family Auto Sales, 859 Washington Street, Attleboro, with 9 customer parking spaces and 27 display spaces. Automaze, Inc., 833 Washington Street, Attleboro, with 7 customer parking spaces and 34 display spaces.
Second.
Anyone have any questions? I've visited all these as well. Anybody have any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. And that's all the items I have for License Committee. I'd like to call for an adjournment at 9:12, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's all I have for this. Didn't I just adjourn?
Yeah, call for a vote.
I thought I did. I said all those in favor, didn't I?
Yeah, but then you said.
Oh, motion passed. We're adjourned.
I'd li- I'd like to call budget and appropriations to order at 9:12. I have 2 quick motions tonight from the docket of December 18th, 2018. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to authorize the school department to pay previous year school bills from fiscal year 2018 totaling $8,245.84, as identified in School Department Finance Director Mark Furtado's communication.
Second.
Thank you, Council Cobus. You all received, these are just bills, again, shipped tonight, when the services were provided, as to when the bills came in. It was at the end of fiscal 2018. Any other questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes, thank you. From the docket of December 18th, 2018. I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to transfer money as requested by City Treasurer Laura Gignac for additional funding for anticipated legal fees for old tax title accounts and foreclosures. Therefore, the mayor hereby requests this honorable body to transfer $40,000 from account 1124100-5783000 citywide reserve fund for transfer to account 1145100-5301001 treasurer professional services.
Second.
Thank you, Council Cobus. So this is, let me just have some notes here. The amount we're collecting on outstanding tax title well offsets the upfront cost we're paying the attorney for their services and what they're able to collect. Over the past 3 years, the treasurer has worked very hard to collect old files in the treasurer's office. She's initiated a uniform process for collecting that might not have been where it needed to be. So after all letters have been sent, the process is complete. We still receive no response from the homeowner. Laura then sends the file to the attorney for collection and/or foreclosure. So the request of the treasurer is just to maintain the files that she currently has with the attorney. Many files are in different statuses in the court system that require additional payments to keep them moving along. If funding isn't provided, the files they have will not have movement until the next fiscal year because they won't be able to pay the attorney to maintain them, not to mention move the files through the process. So I have the notes I could pass along from the treasurer, but I did provide my committee with copies of the spreadsheets, which shows the collections of 16, 17, and 18, as well as a copy of the memo from the mayor, to the mayor from the treasurer. So it's a fundamental function of the treasurer's office going after the tax title. Basically, I'll have any questions, comments on that. Councilor Cobus.
And I don't oppose this at all, and don't really have a question. Well, I guess I have a question. So my concern is why this wasn't included in the budget, and it needs to be paid. And I think for people playing council bingo at home, every time you say "ships in the night," they check a square. But that was the previous one. But with this one.
Okay.
So it's just, the question is, why wasn't it included in the budget? And if we could, pass that comment along to the administration, that would be great. Obviously, we need to pay this.
Well, it's more than just something that we need to pay. Sorry that you feel we're playing bingo.
No.
However, this is a moving target. So it comes down to what the bills are when they come down. As both Deb Gould and the treasurer explained during the budget process, that sometimes we have these moving targets. We don't know when bills are going to come in, such as the previous motion, which, we use the phrase "ships in the night." I'll look for a different phrase. But the reality of the matter is we're at the behest of when the invoices come in. Oftentimes, the invoices come in for work that's done in the previous fiscal year, which is when we get to this point that we have to make due on those bills, whether it's the bills on the previous motion, whether it's attorney bills, in order to pay for the tax title collections for the treasurer's office.
My only comment is this looks like it's something that will be a recurring sort of thing that we should be able to budget for.
Well, you can't really budget because you never know what's going to come in.
Okay.
This is most certainly one of the moving targets. We can do the best that we can, but what the treasurer, to her credit, is doing is trying to be upfront and take care of much as we can in fiscal 2019. So come fiscal 2020, when we have all these other expenses coming down the line, that we're able to take care of this now, so we don't have the ships in the night. Councilor Blair.
Just to back you up a little bit, Mr. Cobus, it'd be nice if we could take all these departments, and if they needed 100,000, we give them 110, so they had a cushion. But that's not possible.
Sure.
And that's why you're going to see, as he said, that they project as best they can, but they're restricted with their budget. And they know if they run short, they come back. And it's part of doing business, and the longer you're here, the more you'll realize that's the way it happens.
And, and the reality is, thank you for your comments. The treasurer has really not hidden this at any point. She's mentioned it at various points, whether it's in when we've had it down for the budget, whether it was when we had our meeting in October. She said that this is something we need to keep on our radar. President Cooper.
I think I'll just ride the same horse for a minute as another thing we say all the time, riding the same horse. But the bottom line is it's for additional money to the professional services line, which she does budget for And in that is the tax, the attorney fees for that, and it's an unknown at the time, and it does say for additional funding up to that professional services line, so I'm okay with it if, and, you know, should we look at cost over the past couple of years maybe and see if it's worth increasing that? Because are we doing this, you know, year over year? I don't know the answer to the spend in that line off the top of my head, but that to me is a question for her at budget time.
And one thing I will add to that, and thank you for your comments, is the treasurer has collected more tax title over the last 3 years than that office has in recent past. Since January 2018, Siddell and Siddell has assisted us in collecting $368,871.23 that the treasurer's office has been unable to collect despite all their effort. In total, the treasurer's office has collected a total of $625,606.01 in the past due outstanding tax title balances, January 1st, 2018 through the 31st. So I think considerable work is being done in collecting some of these past tax titles, which I believe credit is warranted at that point. Any other questions, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I would like to call for an adjournment at 9:20.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're adjourned at 9:20.
Thank you. Call the Zoning and Land Use Committee to order at 9:20. We have one item of business to discuss today and then a number of different updates. So, all the way at the end, from the docket of September 11th, 2018, I entertain a motion to approve the request of the mayor to lay out Rathburn Willard Drive in Brennan Way as public ways in any related drainage, water, or sewage facilities or easements pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 82, Section 2, and pursuant to Section 16-2.1 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as amended, all as shown on the plan and profile entitled City of Attleboro, Massachusetts Layout Plan and Profile, Rathburn Willard Drive in Brennan Way by Kesley Booz Associates Incorporated, Stephen R. Garvin, P.E., Todd M. Chapman, P.L.S., dated August 31st, 2018, horizontal scale 1 inch to 40 feet, vertical scale 1 inch to 4 feet, which plan and profile have been deemed satisfactory to the Superintendent of Public Works.
Second.
This is to adjust the layout of Rathburn Willard Drive. We had the public hearing to discuss this. This adds the rotary there. The one additional comment I'd like to add here is from the Traffic Committee. Their recommendation, they had 3 items they'd like to see adjusted on that, and so I'll read those here. The first one being the installation of a T-type intersection for access to Brennan Middle School, allowing for distinct sight lines for turning traffic. The second one, the installation of permanent speed tables, the number and location of which should be determined by traffic engineers to ensure safety in the vicinity of all 3 schools affected by the project. And the third item, the installation of rectangular rapid flashing beacons, RFBs, at all crosswalks in the project scope, as well as the roadway alongside Studley Elementary School. An example of the technology can be seen in the sponsored video, and I'll send this along to everybody. So those were the 3 recommendations from the Traffic Study Committee. Those, if this moves forward and passes the full council, those recommendations will be attached to this and sent along to the committee for this. So that concludes my comments. Are there other comments about this?
So, I have a question. So you're saying that the 3 suggestions would be included and then they would be followed, or?
Not necessarily. They would just be recommendations.
Okay.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Opposed? Motion passes. So, and then there's just a couple of quick updates. There are 2 motions about amending the ordinances to change the definition of industrial and industrial business park zoning districts to add the marijuana piece to that. Those are waiting for a recommendation from the planning board. Remember, it was a joint public hearing with them, so as soon as we hear back from them, we'll move those forward. That's on their docket for December 17th, I believe is what Gary said. And then everyone should have received, regarding the special permit request for Briarleaf, everybody should have received a ruling from the planning department. It's a great document, and I applaud the planning department for all of their work they do to put this together. I encourage people to review it. The bottom line is there aren't any significant issues that they see with this. There's a couple recommendations within the document, but ultimately they don't see anything requiring us from moving forward. And I would have moved forward with that tonight, but we need to break the motion down into the 6 separate votes that we'll need to conduct. So expect that to happen in 2 weeks. We'll adjust that motion. And that,
2 weeks is Christmas.
Next year.
yeah, so we probably won't do it then. So that concludes my business for the Zoning and Land Use Committee. Motion to adjourn?
Second. Second.
Motion Storer, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. We're adjourned at 9:25.
Public Works canceled.
Yes, thank you very much. No, I'm not going to cancel. I just have a couple of things. Thank you, though. I'd like to call Public Works Committee to order at 9:25. I do not have any motions this evening, but just wanted to remind the public that we have 2 applications from National Grid and Verizon. One is to install 5 new poles at Dale Court Extension and then to relocate a couple of poles. The public hearing for that will be December 18th. And then an application also from National Grid to replace direct buried cable with new AL cable inside PVVC conduit throughout Augsburg Drive, fed from the riser at P8149 on Slater Street. That public hearing also will be held next week on December 18th. That's a lot of cable, because Augsburg Drive is like super long, and that'll be interesting to hear. I've never heard that before. And that concludes any comments that I have this evening for Public Works. I'd like to call for an adjournment at 9:26.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you ever so kindly.
So I'd like to call a special committee on the council's rules and procedures to order at 6:26.
6.
Sitting on, I'm sorry, 9:26. It's late. Sitting on this committee are Councilor Kobus and Parika. Councilor Parika had a family emergency and had to depart. I have one measure to bring before the committee this evening. From the docket of February 5th, 2018, I entertain a motion to allow the council members the use of non-cellular devices such as tablets, in addition to request the administration to investigate the possibility of supplying council members with tablets to be used at meetings to provide members with electronic copies of agendas, committee meetings, motions, etc., and decrease the use of paper in the council office.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Kobus.
Could I second more emphatically?
I don't think you could. This has been debated for the 9 years I've been on the council. And I think the largest opposition has always been the distraction, that people will be sitting in the council chambers looking at a tablet screen rather than looking at each other and interfacing in real time. But I was watching the evening news this week, and one of the reporters was in a council chamber, and the council chamber was set up in rows facing one direction, and in front of every desk was a big computer screen. And I thought, wow, are we behind the times? I bring this to every council meeting because I have to have it with me. And in Taunton, I have a generous hour-and-a-half lunch hour. This goes with me into the restaurant when I'm having lunch and I'm going through all the paperwork. And that doesn't happen in all the other jobs that I have. As a real estate broker and as an appraiser, as an assessor, it's all digital. All digital. And I really would love to not lug this big thing around all the time and instead use this or a Surface or a tablet. And I think there's an advantage of pushing this council into the 21st century. We're so far behind. We've taken our caution, I guess is the point that I want to make. We've taken our caution, we've delayed this move for so long that I think now's the time to do it. And that concludes my comments. Councilor Cooper.
Thank you for bringing this forward. I'm in full support. When it comes next week, Richard, would you just note the section to amend to insert the language to allow counselors to, so that it can be fixed in the rules and then recirculated to everybody in the appropriate spot where your committee thinks it's most appropriate to insert that language?
Yes, in between now and the next council meeting.
Perfect.
We do have a committee on council rules and procedures tomorrow night here at 7 o'clock in the room, of which I don't expect full attendance because I suspect that Council Parika may not be able to attend. But I think we can still accomplish a lot tomorrow night. And I will do that, Councilor. I will make the amendment.
So I am also obviously supportive of this. All this paper is very foreign to me. I just wanted to comment that I think I had sent something with the suggested update to the rules and procedures a while ago. If you don't have something else, I can dig that up and bring it with me tomorrow.
I do have it.
As an option.
I
Okay.
do have it. It's in another big pile of paper in my car, which has, I think, easily 4,000 pieces of paper in it, in my car. Sorry.
So would it be, would you like me to
I
find it?
know,
bring
I'm
it?
sure I have it. I'm sure I have it,
Okay.
and I'm sure I'll use that, and that's what I'll be doing tomorrow during lunch hour. Yep.
We can vote on this then before you adjourn. I just want to make a comment about tomorrow's meeting.
Okay, I'll call for a vote if we're all set. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. You have further discussion?
I do, just for tomorrow's meeting, if you have anything you'd want me to read before, to review, if you want to resend that out, so I can do that tonight or tomorrow.
I think if you were exposed to it without some dialogue, you wouldn't show up for the meeting. So I'd rather we have a meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments for the rules of committee? Wonderful. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's in order. All in favor?
Aye.
The special committee on the council's rules and procedures adjourned at 9:32.
Call the special committee for tax abatement review to order at 9:32. I did email, and then I can pass this out too, and I just wanted to give everybody a little bit of an update. I don't have any motions this evening, but I do want to start the dialogue about what can be done. I met with Barry Lacasse, Deb Gould, and Julie, I feel like I'm gonna forget her last name, Hobson. Thank you. And then Stan joined us at the end of the meeting, and it was really helpful. So the three options that seemed to come to light were listed here in this form. So the 41C senior exemption, the options in yellow are where we could potentially make some adjustments that could be suggested. Then for 41A, the property tax deferral program, you can see those, and then the senior work-off program. Those are whatever's highlighted in yellow where we could make some changes. So some of the examples include from the exemption, changing the age to 70 to 65, increasing the maximum assets, and then we could also increase the potential tax relief. The last column is really important because this is the potential it could have in the budget. So I wanted to offer this to everybody, have everyone review it, and then hoping to have more of a discussion probably in early January. Does anyone have any comments right now? One thing I would say is that the senior work-off program, there is no maximum income to that program, and if this committee is really trying to target individuals that are in need of financial assistance, we may want to consider possibly limiting the income so we can get individuals that really do need the tax relief. But again, this is probably going to be a lengthy discussion.
Did you look into anything about freezing the taxes for seniors of a certain age?
I did, so I can speak briefly to the three things that are in the committee right now. The freeze, the tax freeze, there is nowhere else in the state of Massachusetts doing that right now. And there was a lot of concern with the department heads about that program, but it's something that I do want to continue to look into.
Well, what was, if you don't mind me asking, what was the concerns
So
of the department head?
Sure, so the freeze, the taxes would still have to get paid, and so it would go to the other taxpayers. Wherever that freeze is, then would go to everybody else. And because there is nowhere else in Massachusetts doing that right now, I think that, which is not to say we shouldn't be the first, but I think that there's a little bit of wanting to proceed with caution.
It is done out of state, Diane, some other statewide. Florida, for one, that I know of, because I have a brother that lives there, but we weren't hesitant to build a new school and pass the burden on to the senior citizens. So why should we be hesitant to pass a small burden back the other way? You know, I mean, we were joyful to pass a tax on to the senior citizens that more than likely could put a senior out of their home. The school tax. That's going to put a senior citizen out of a home a lot faster than an extra 25 or 30 bucks on their taxes during the year. Far more. So I personally think it's something that should be looked at in order to preserve somebody that's been in a home for 25, 30 years, paid their taxes, paid their dues, they're helping to pay for the new high school. It's something they can budget. They know what their taxes are going to be this year, next year, the year after. Give them something to work on. There's a lot of people that can't work. There's a lot of people that maybe they're over the income. You know, I'm speaking for myself. I'm in a situation where I'm getting to the point where I don't know how much longer I can stay in my house. I worked all my life for it. I might be property poor, but I worked all my life for it. And I built that house 20 years ago. My taxes were $3,500. With the new increase, with the high school, be 11 grand.
So I'm just
On
going to...
fixed income, so it's getting tough for anybody. I chose to live where I'm living. I chose to build that house.
Hold on, I'm going to ask, Councilor Dillon.
Thanks. I think Council Blair brings up some valid points. I have just really kind of, the high school is the high school.
Oh, I understand.
And, you know, it passed overwhelmingly, and there's seniors that voted for it because I understand the impact it's going to have for the year to come. And I understand your vantage point and where you're coming from. In order to really ensure that we're able to come up with something meaningful, a really meaningful solution, we put this committee together, which I think, Diane, so far you've done a great job in putting all this stuff together.
I second that. This is no disrespect for Diane
I wasn't
whatsoever.
insinuating that it was by any stretch. Where I was going to go with that, Counselor, is my gut tells me that we're probably going to end up with something that some amalgamation of, or amalgam rather, of several different options that are in front of us. I think that that's what I'm looking to do, because you're right, we want to make sure that people who've worked their whole lives, who are able to stay in their homes, that we're doing what we can. My concern, and I said this a couple weeks ago, is I don't want to keep beating the high school over people's heads. You know, I think that it's something that this is the new normal for us now. This is what we're in. So what I think that this committee is taxed with and charged with is finding out how do we help those who this is going to impact the most. And I think that with these three options, it's a wonderful place to start. And I think we need to continue to look to how do we expand it. So Diana, I appreciate you taking the time and not really rushing through this. And I think, you know what, maybe a freeze is going to be part of that solution. Maybe a partial freeze, maybe a change to the work program. It's going to be quite the amalgam, I think, of all of these. Thank you.
Thank you.
Something has to be done, though, Mr. Delisi.
I agree, and that's what this committee is.
You know?
100% I agree.
I think this is great because it gives a visual of the options. The only thing that's missing here, I think, is the freeze and what, we don't currently have one, but what the guidelines could be or should be and what the impact will be, sort of to give a full picture of all potential options, even if it's not a recommendation of the committee based on the meetings. I think it's important to put on here what the impact, or the anticipated impact of a freeze might be as you evaluating options.
That's a good, thank you. That's our co-list.
I very much agree with Councilor Blair in that the freeze is the biggest way we can have a meaningful impact. But I also understand the concern that this may not be done anywhere else in the state, and that there's a lot of effort involved in putting that forward. So if I understand this correctly, Councilor Holmes, I believe these are the three sort of low-hanging fruit for us to address immediately, and I applaud you for addressing what we can right now, and then still moving forward with the freeze, with the understanding that will take a little bit more time.
Yes.
So is that
That is
that
correct.
what the plan is?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I also applaud the concept of a freeze, and at least that we should look into it. It's a subject that's being discussed at the state level. I know Representative Hawkins is looking at 2 or 3 different possibilities in one of his committees. We'll be seeing something come out of that, and maybe we can learn from that. I want to also applaud the idea of expanding the senior work-off program, because that was a long list. And there were people that I know for a fact were waiting at least 1.5 years before any openings occurred. So I'd like to see the idea of going up 120 to 150 is progress in my mind.
Thank you.
So I know you want to get a feeling for where everybody is, so that's why, the only reason why I'm raising my hand and giving you my offer. Thank you for trying to simplify this. This is extremely complicated, and I think you probably got a feeling of that when you met with Stanley. I deal with this every day of the week in my job. People come into the assessor's office because they're afraid that they're not going to be able to make the bills. They're wondering, is there anything that they can do? There are some things that we can do quickly. The top line, we currently give $600, but by local option, I believe that can now be raised to $2,500. On the second line, state reimbursement is something that you've got to double check, because I believe the state reimburses only veterans, and I don't think we get any reimbursement on the senior exemptions. That all comes out of the overlay. Additionally, I'm going to be sending you some information on the fourth one down, on the tax deferral. Apparently, there are some legal challenges on the seniors who opt for reverse mortgages, where the city may not be able to recap the taxes that we've set aside because of reverse mortgage law doesn't allow a municipal lien to take a certain percentage of the property. So, yeah, it's even much more complicated than it looks. But Diana, Council Holmes, I kudos to you for tackling this one. This is a big one. And I can't underscore the need for this council to take some action and to do what we can now. Because that freeze, if we take that road, that should be in addition to action that we take now, because that's a long-term solution, one that everybody's looking for. Every assessor I talk to in every municipality they're all talking the same thing. Residential exemptions, small commercial exemptions, senior exemptions, veterans exemptions, blind exemptions, handicap exemptions, because the taxes are going so high so quick. So I just want you to know that I appreciate you putting in the effort to do this. And if we could do something quickly, I think we should do that. And I think if we can do something long-term, I think we should try that too. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, thank you. Anyone else? Well, I'll just comment, I'll just say a few things. I think that I thought that the highest exemption could go was 1,000.
It's changed.
Okay. So I can look into that. I can certainly add the freeze to this as well, just so we can have that. And the other thing I wanted to mention was we did have the elderly and disabled taxation aid fund. They do have that in CCONC. I was planning on reaching out to figure out how it's going. I thought that would actually be something kind of easy to do. So this is where individuals could donate, and then people could fill out an application to access the money. But there was even not, I wouldn't say resistance, but it's a lot more challenging than that. Even though we think, oh wait, this is easy, it does require many departments to be involved in that, and it may be for not really worth a lot. So I was going to plan to reach out to CCONC to see how it's going before we just decided to okay something that seemed like it made sense, and then realized it was actually really challenging. So this is where this is right now, and I really want to thank everybody for their comments. And in the next couple weeks in the new year, we can look at this a little bit more. Okay, that concludes my comments on our public adjournment.
Second.
9:46. Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Special meeting notice, you should all have it for January 8th. We're gonna have a special meeting that night, just because we'll have so many. Yeah.
Are you saying that we should have special committee meetings on a special meeting night?